Good to see so many familiar faces and new faces. So we're going to get into it this morning. We're talking about one-sided client service meetings and why this continues to happen. As you may know, my name's Douglas Bonaparth. I'm the president and founder of Bonafide Wealth in New York City. It's a firm that specializes in high-achieving millennials. And joining me on stage is my wife, Heather Bonaparth. She is our director of legal and business affairs and the chief operating officer of pretty much my entire life.
It's true. It's true.
So I've been a financial advisor for more than 20 years. I've worked in 2 other practices before starting my own firm about 8 years ago. And one of the key reasons I started my firm was because of the lack of attention that was being given to our generation. Despite being educated, motivated, and inspired after facing the challenges from the Great Recession at a very pivotal time in our professional careers. Heather and I were very much part of that demographic. She became a lawyer for a Fortune 50 company, while I was dedicating myself to shaking things up in wealth management. We wrote our first book together in 2017 about millennials and their money, which shaped our experiences of trying to adult during what, dare I say, was unprecedented times.
Very unprecedented. Very.
We thought the culture had really shifted and that millennials were getting away from the way things were in the past, not just in terms of employment, but in terms of equity and what's fair. And we certainly felt that that was part of our marriage as well.
Absolutely. But then come the years when big things start to happen in your life. Like people are settling down, they're buying homes, they're having kids, they're trying to build sustainable careers out of something that felt like maybe just a job before that. And when one of those big things happens at once, when more than one of those big things happens at once, there comes a shift because you really begin to rely on other people, especially your partner if you're in a committed relationship. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just kind of the way that things pan out, right? So when one person handles one area of life while another takes on something else, we certainly found ourselves falling into that pattern too. I'm an educated person, but that doesn't mean that I was always good with money. And when I worked hard, really, really hard in my 20s to both emotionally and technically learn the ins and outs of cash flow, student loan repayment, budgeting, my finances, to really stay on top of things in my relationship and really become, like a student of personal finance. But I can tell you exactly what happened that caused me to disengage from my finances. The pandemic happened. I became what I like to refer to as the director of the Bonaparth cruise ship to nowhere. There's no other way to describe it. I was lawyering, mothering, cooking, cleaning. I was a one-woman risk management firm for our entire lives. And honestly, that was because my husband was earning more money than me. And he had clients to reassure and serve at that time. And that's when I think a lot of people start to feel and start to tell themselves messages about who deserves things, who deserves that type of time. And the point is that it doesn't really matter who's educated and who's motivated. Life just happens. And it's exactly how financial advisors, like many of you sitting here today, and Douglas, find themselves sitting across the table from only one partner in a financial planning meeting.
Yeah, so I've watched our clients grow up alongside us. Many tables that once had both partners there slowly and surely became tables of one. And in my experience, participation in household finances is still generally one-sided, with one partner typically taking on most, if not all, of the financial responsibilities. About a year ago, Heather and I went to a conference where we heard from the head of wealth management for one of the world's largest banks. And what he shared with us opened our eyes to something crazy. And that's the biggest problem the bank was facing was what to do with the surviving spouses of their clients. As a result, we found that these surviving spouses had never met with their financial advisor, let alone sat in on a client service meeting. And as a result, wealth increasingly was being transferred to spouses that were being completely left in the dark about their finances. And he candidly admitted to us that they had no real solution for this problem, and financial advisors who were looking to engage those surviving spouses were doing so at a moment that was too late. Now, I recognize that this issue is flagged by a very large bank with very wealthy clients. Maybe it doesn't resonate as much for your typical financial advisory practice with your average financial planning client. But having put my boots on the ground with my generation from an early age, I know our clients are educated. I know they're interested in more than ever before when it comes to their finances, regardless of their gender, net worth, or marital status.
And it's true, and there really is reason for optimism. Hearts and Wellness, which is a consumer research firm, recently reported that women are taking on a much larger role in their household finances. According to their research, 9 out of 10 women living with a partner say they're involved in spending and investing decisions, and that's a massive leap forward from 42% in a similar survey done in 2012. It's certainly progress, but I think that stats and surveys don't really paint the full picture here. What does it mean to be involved in your spending and investing decisions anyway? And 9 out of 10, I would want a little bit more context for that because our practice told a different story when we began doing this work together. We took a random sampling of just 10 service meetings at our firm and found that 4 of them had one partner show up. And so that means a little more than half had dual participation, but not by much. Truthfully, pursuing this work has been a humbling experience that's really turned the mirror back around, not only on our practice, but on our own lives. It has allowed for us to see just how uniquely positioned financial advisors are to encourage the disengaged partners from taking a more active role in their personal finances. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why this should matter to you, and then kind of like why this is happening. And then at the end, we'll walk through some of our suggestions for how you can start to change that. So first off, why this should matter to you as advisors. First of all, this sounds kind of obvious, but both partners are your clients. When you're not speaking and listening to both partners, your advice is going into a vacuum. You're making assumptions about what everybody wants and whether they're comfortable with the decisions being made. I know one partner might tacitly be able to receive that information on behalf of their partner, but that doesn't mean that you know how it's really being received. How well is that other person receiving the information that isn't physically present in front of you? And you don't really know that if they're not engaging with you. And then, of course, there's business continuity. What if something happens to the person who's driving the financial relationship and the other partner is completely in the dark? You saw what was going. You just heard a minute ago what the head of a large bank had said. It creates a huge mess. As an advisor, you end up having to reinvent the wheel or do many of the same things you've already done once before, or you simply lose the client because you never built a relationship with them.
And then we're going to talk about deepening relationships, right? Working with both partner gives greater insight into the financial lives, motivations, and ultimately what's important to your clients. It gives you greater access to their family members and all the people and stakeholders that truly mean the most to them. When you get your arms around these people and these stakeholders, you can make these relationships last generation over generation. And I think above all, it's our responsibility. As financial advisors, many of us are fiduciaries. If we're going to act in people's best interests, we need to understand that one-sided conversations around money and decision-making doesn't meet the mark. It's our job to strengthen people's relationships with their money and give everybody an equal voice and platform to be heard. The net effect is more equitable relationships, and advisors, all of us here, can play a very important role in making that happen.
So you heard a couple minutes ago about how we got to this very weird one-sided relationship with our own money, even though my husband is a financial advisor and I'm a lawyer. We still got there. But let's dig into the why a little bit more so that you can maybe have some greater insight as to why maybe some of your clients might also find themselves in this position. So here's some of the reasons that we believe this happens. First of all, there's social norms. People tailor their financial behaviors and their perceived responsibilities around what they observed growing up, first and foremost. Some people might run away from that, wanting to be better than what they observed growing up, while other people model their behavior around it. So sure, we see greater two-person participation now because I think, personally, I think that's what society demands, but we can't ignore the confusion placed upon us by what we've observed in our own families and communities growing up. So not even just as kids, but even look around today, plain and simple. If you surround yourself with people who don't know anything about their finances, you will also believe that you have permission to not know anything about your finances. That's just the way it is. The second thing, and this is something that we will be diving into a lot in our forthcoming book about love and money, is division of labor. people divide their household responsibilities and believe that handling money is just one of these like delegable tasks. We all know that it's not. That you can't make something like bill pay synonymous with being an engaged and knowledgeable financial partner, but people do it. Because when unpaid labor is undervalued, the person who bears the invisible load will look for any and every opportunity to check out of the few things that they're not responsible for. And you know, the most direct way I can say this, and speaking, you know, from a woman's perspective, is that some women might feel that their finances are the only thing that they are not responsible for, and they're looking for relief wherever they can get it, truthfully.
It's true. Avoiding conflict is another reason both partners don't show up to the table. Conflicts about money are some of the most difficult and recurrent problems to solve because everything about this is just so emotional. We're not talking just about numbers. We're talking about risk appetite, long-term goals, control, power, even conversations about the future. Have you ever had an unemotional conversation about the future? I don't really think I have. And if you're missing the communication skills to navigate the hard things together, you're going to find yourself fighting about these topics and ultimately fighting about money. And avoiding those fights might turn out to be what you both ultimately want most. So you're just not going to have these convos because you don't want to fight and everyone feels better for it. That's not really great. So, and that's to the detriment, obviously, of the household. So even if it means one person opting out of the conversation altogether simply to avoid the argument. And then there's confidence. This is something we're going to talk about a lot in the forthcoming book. How someone speaks to their partner about money really matters, and just how someone speaks to their partner in general really matters. Having or lacking the confidence in your money knowledge plays a major role in who will be showing up to that table to have that conversation. And then lastly, there's control. There are a lot of reasons why people feel compelled to gatekeep or exclude their partner from the conversation, and none of it is good.
Nope, none of it's good.
I will let your minds run wild as to why that is. But again, no bueno. So now that you know why people end up in this situation, you can understand just how hard it might be to fix it. And that's why when I take a look at our own practice, I know that there just isn't one action that you can take that's going to resonate with your clients. There are many smaller steps that we can take as advisors to move the needle to greater participation from everybody that we serve. And here are some ways. This is what you're all waiting for, the ways in which you can make this happen.
So the first one is a mental shift. And I think this is really, really important to kind of conceptualize and be open to if you're going to be serving clients in a financial capacity. It's a mental reframe for you as an advisor. You need to rethink what contribution means. It's a really, really powerful word, contribution. It's not just earning money. But I think a lot of people think that. Traditionally, when you ask somebody, how do you contribute to your household? A lot of people say, well, you know, here's my salary, and that's what I contribute.
Did you see my bonus this year?
Right. I mean, that's I think, what people traditionally think of when they hear the word contribution. But earning money is just one important way that people can contribute to their household, right? Caring for the people you love is another very valid way to be a contributor. And the reason that an advisor, I mean, there's lots of other ways you contribute you can contribute, and exploring that is really important. But for the advisor, the mental shift is so important because you can remove your own subconscious bias you might have against a partner who's either not earning an income at all or is earning less than their partner. You know, I think that those things are really like ingrained, and it's really, really hard to break that cycle of saying, okay, this is the partner, this is the client who earns more, and so I'm gonna defer to their opinion more. These are really, really hard patterns to break, even in your own subconscious mind as an advisor. So redefining contribution, huge, huge shift.
This one might sound a little obvious, but let's actually engage both partners. Let's make it part of our practice to engage everyone in the financial planning process. In our regular communications meetings, let's highlight the benefits of having both partners engaged. Request that everyone attend meetings and make it clear that this is an expectation of your practice.
I have a question. Can
Yes.
we ask the audience by
Yeah.
a show of hands how many people typically would request that of their clients?
Yeah, does anyone have a policy? Yeah, there. That
Okay,
is
that's great.
fantastic.
That's
So it
great.
looked like about half, maybe a little bit more than half in here. They don't comply.
Well, right, right,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So that's a very good point. You can say, hey, so on that note, like it's not easy, but and for those who don't, this could be a very big shift, and we don't want to run afoul of like putting clients in a very uncomfortable place. So we're like, okay, you don't want to show up, it's fine. Let's just have the
And
meeting.
we've had this conversation with a couple professionals who have said, I just don't want to alienate anyone. I don't want to run afoul of my client. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So I'm just going to, I'll just roll with whatever they want. And that's fine. But I think that there's also a softer approach you can take as well if you don't want to like put somebody on the spot and do it directly.
Yeah, not just softer, but maybe more consistent. And here's a good example. Maybe in a firm-wide communication, you can go over the highlights and the benefits of having everyone there. Okay, so maybe 90% of your firms are going to be like, wow, look at this firm-wide blast. I'm going to adhere to this. But if you can get 10, 15% of your clients through a firm-wide email or consistently putting it out there that this is what you expect out of them, and that's the gains you get, everyone's going to be better off for that. It's going to resonate with someone. So maybe you can start with this softer approach before you corner them and say, "Where is your spouse?" No.
It's true. But to that point, actually, reaching out to the non-participating partner directly could really go a long way. Invite them into the conversation. Maybe offer an extra hour of your time outside of the typical scope of your engagement, maybe even one-on-one without their partner present. They actually might feel more comfortable asking you questions that they feel are silly or maybe they should already know if they're just spending that time with you directly. Again, so much of this is about confidence. You lose people through a lack of confidence, and you gain them back through supporting their confidence. So anything you can do as an advisor to build confidence is not something that they're going to forget.
This is one of my favorite ones because I really think it's easy to do if you're willing to do it. And it's be flexible. Like everyone's lives are a little bit more hectic than they were ever before. If I got, people of young, parents of young children in here, you know what
Also,
I'm talking about
and because
here.
work also like the expectations
Yeah.
are so much greater that you should be available at all times. So everyone, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like things are a little more chaotic than ever.
Yeah. So it's really hard to find for a lot of people their schedules aligning in a way that actually allows for the opportunity to get together and have these types of meetings. So here's what you can do. You can consider offering some weekend or evening appointments, even if that's just like once or twice a month, by showing your clients that you're making this effort to allow there to be these times. Right? It's going to maybe help them try a little harder themselves. Wow, my financial advisor has opened up a couple Saturday mornings for us to be able to talk, or we can get together on a Wednesday evening when the kids are finally put down to bed. You can offer that up. It might take a few hours out of your week, out of your month, but if it gets you closer to having those two-sided conversations, you're going to be better off for it.
And also the thing with that too is like just seeing that the options available might actually make a couple wait a couple weeks to speak with you and just say, you know what, if we wait for 3 weeks, both of us can be there. And so just seeing the availability, I think could really begin to shift their mindset about that as well. Yeah. The next thing is to encourage regular money dates for your clients. Suggest they set aside time each month for a money date, which is a dedicated, distraction-free time when both partners sit down to review their own financial health, discuss any goals and opportunities and any decisions that need to be made outside of the scope of your relationship with the clients. Like this is time for just them together. You can ask them if they've been doing it or challenge them to set a date once a month, and then just even if you don't even have to ask, well, what did you guys talk about in that money date? Just say, hey, have you guys been talking about this regularly? I really would suggest maybe once a month you sit down and do it. By normalizing regular financial conversations, it reinforces the idea for them that money is a team effort.
Let's talk about technology here and why we should leverage this. insist that all partners have the same applications, programs, and systems that manage their day-to-day financial lives. You can suggest tools that help partners track their spending, saving, investments together. When we have technology on our side, we lower the barriers to entry in order for making people come together. We want to make things as easy as possible. Ask your clients, hey, do you have your banking app on your phone? And it's not just good enough to have that banking app there, whatever application. They got to be able to log into it as well. So they say, oh, I see the password's not filled out there. That's not very helpful. So yeah, technology is absolutely great, but we got to make sure people can actually get into that and therefore have a better shot at collaborating together when it comes to their money.
And to be clear, they need to have access to all of the same apps. Everyone should have all of the same things, and everybody should be logged in when it comes to the money, right?
Absolutely. And I know a lot of advisors have the tools and systems to issue those usernames and passwords. You are in firm control of the ability for your clients to have access to the systems that you have for them.
So I think, the last and maybe most important piece of advice that we could offer in this regard is to meet your clients and meet people where they are. And when we say meet people where we are, we really mean to pay attention. Some disengaged spouses might not be ready to show up for a lesson from their financial advisor over all the stuff that they've missed over however many years that they may have disengaged. They just may not be ready for that. And it goes back again to this idea of building confidence however you need to. For example, what medium of expression resonates with people the most? Lots of things. People like to consume their information in lots of different ways. Some people love podcasts. Some people like to, doom scroll on the internet like we all do. And we love, I love Instagram, and I actually like following some of our, friends who are money influencers and things like that. Newsletters. This is not one big promo for our newsletter, The Joint Account.
Subscribe today.
Like and subscribe. But no, actually, but I think it's a really good example. What we try and do in our newsletter, for example, is that Doug covers the technical and I cover more of the behavioral. I try and cover things from a human interest standpoint that would engage a different set of readers than who want to really dive into the nitty-gritty with him. So, there's content that's technical. There's content that's emotional and entertaining for all different types of audiences. And you can steward your clients to a wide array of resources to dip their toe in however they feel most comfortable and build enthusiasm in a way that's most palatable to them. So, somebody might listen to a podcast and say, I actually have a question as to whether we're doing it that way. And then they reach out to you and they say, hey, can we talk a little bit more about this subject that I just heard on so-and-so's podcast that you recommended to me? We don't believe, obviously, financial advisor here. We do not believe that this replaces the work of a financial advisor by any means, but we're talking about an on-ramp to greater enthusiasm about these topics. This could be a really, really good gateway to getting people to engage with their advisor when they were typically maybe too intimidated before.
I can't tell you how many times I've used other advisors, influencers, or people in this space's content to help engage our firm's clients. And at no point in time did I ever think they're like, oh, well, this advisor's putting out this guy. We're going to fire Doug and go with this person. No, not at all. They're very grateful that you are, one, connected enough and have friends and colleagues in the industry that are putting out this kind of information. So I think it actually makes your relationship stronger. So please don't have this fear of oh my God, I can't believe I'm sharing some other person's information. They're going to think less of me for that. No, not at all. They're actually going to think greater of you for that. All right, so we're going to begin wrapping things up here a bit. Listen, fostering financial participation from both partners in a relationship is not only essential for the individuals and households we serve, but it's a critical responsibility for financial advisors. We've seen in the progress we've made over the recent years, many couples still struggle with one-sided financial relationships. As advisors, it's our duty to break down these barriers by engaging both participants, encouraging open dialogue, and offering flexible solutions that meet them where they are. The goal is to create a balanced an informed financial partnership that benefits everyone and in turn strengthens our relationships with them.
We are really, really excited to continue doing this work over the next year, leading up to our book that's coming out hopefully late 2025 called Money Together. Reach out to us directly if you want to continue this discussion in any way for your organization, or if you'd like, just to continue this work alongside of us. But in the meantime, you can always find us trolling each other online, which we love to do. It's a form of love, I swear.
It's our love language.
It is. Or you could subscribe to our newsletter, The Joint Account, and receive some more tools there as well. Thanks so much for having us today. This was really, really our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.